Hi, and welcome to the launch of Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Denmark. My name is Erik Elvingsson Hedén, and I'm the CEO of SB Insight and the founder of Sustainable Brand Index. I will guide you through this webinar full of insights about sustainability, brands, and consumers. Before we get into the specifics about the results from Sustainable Brand Index 2024, I want to share some things about our company. SB Insight is an insight agency, obviously, focusing on sustainability. We cover sustainability from a brand, communications, and business development perspective. And we help brands and companies all over the place to understand how is sustainability affecting us, our brand, our consumers, and our ability to communicate with them. We have been doing this for a long time now. We started out in Sweden back in 2011. Then 2 years later, we went into the Norwegian market, the Danish market, and the Finnish market. In 2017, we expanded into the Netherlands as well. And then since 2020, we're also in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So all in all, 8 markets today. Sustainable Brand Index is today Europe's largest independent brand study on sustainability. We're very proud of that. And every year, we interview more than 80,000 respondents about how they perceive more than 1,600 brands in these markets. So, how do we do it? How do we perform Sustainable Brand Index? That's a very good question. Let me walk you through the 4 stages of it. Number 1, desk research. We put a massive amount of time every year into looking around us, basically. What is happening in the market? What are key developments that we see? Economy, politics, social trends, etc. And of course, what are the sustainability topics that we see emerging among consumers and in society in general? So this is a lot of work just looking around us and gathering that. And this is super important input that goes into the web surveys that we perform in the later stages. Stage number 2, web survey number 1. This is where we take all the insights and the results from the desk research stage and we put into a web survey where we want to interview consumers. We work with Norstat as our main supplier of consumer respondents. We access their panels and we ask our questions, basically. And web survey number 1 is very much about 2 things. It's brand assessments. What do people think about the brands from a sustainability perspective? And also some overarching consumer indicators regarding sustainability attitudes and sustainability behaviors. Stage number 3, web survey number 2. Having done web survey number 1, we collect the data, we look at it, we analyze it, and we see, maybe there are things here we want to examine further. If so, we put that into web survey number 2. On top of that, we also look at the in-depth perspective for each brand. So we analyze, or rather we interview consumers about between 25 to 30 different areas for the brand. What are the key drivers behind the perception of the specific brand when it comes to sustainability? Stage number 4, last but not least, turning data into insights. This is really the most important part, according to me. This is where we take the data from web survey 1 and web survey 2 and of course combine it with 14 years of having performed Sustainable Brand Index. So the amount of data is vast and now we have to make sense of it, and this is what we do. And one part of that is really generating insights that we're going to share today in this webinar, and the other part is really tailored insights relevant for the brands on the list that we provide to them. What is the purpose of Sustainable Brand Index? This is a very important question to ask yourself. Luckily, this is something we clearly defined back in 2011 when we launched it. The purpose of Sustainable Brand Index is to drive the agenda within sustainability and really visualize the value of sustainable branding. And by doing this, we see that we can increase the knowledge among different stakeholders about sustainability. And this is something that is super important today. One of the reasons that we started Sustainable Brand Index was this perspective that you can see here, the sustainable perspective, as we call it. What it shows is really that sustainability has gone from yesterday being clearly detached from the brand and irrelevant, to be honest, to actually integrating more and more into the brand. And by integrating, I mean that this is a huge part of what people look at, what consumers value when they assess a brand and choose a brand. Hopefully, and what we're aiming for here is really that tomorrow, in the future, we're going to have a market that consists of only sustainable brand. It's going to be mandatory, and then we're going to stop talking about brands and sustainable brands because they're all going to be sustainable. A quick look before we go into the key insights at the data collection numbers specifically for Denmark. So this year we have interviewed 12,000 Danish consumers between 16 and 75 years old, nationally representative sample. All in all, 253 brands that we have chosen, and those have been within 25 different industries. A look at the KPI, the key performance indicator that we have looked at since the very beginning of Sustainable Brand Index, the interest in sustainability. And this is showed here in a way that is how large a share of the Danish population that are discussing sustainability, they're talking about sustainability with friends, family, etc., on some kind of a regular basis, often or sometimes. First of all, I'm always a fan of the long-term trends, so that is what I want you to look at. So if you look at the development from 2013 up until today, you do see that there is a positive development from 42% back in 13, and this year's 58%. So we do see it's gone up. Some things that I usually also mention when we look at this is that historically we have seen that things happening in the world around us, for example, the Paris climate meeting in December 2015 really affected the number for 16 here. We had Donald Trump coming into power in the beginning of 2017, and that really affected not only him, of course, but there was a lot of focus on him and North Korea, as you might remember. There's a lot of focus on that drew down the numbers a bit in 17 and 18, and then we had a lot of focus on climate change for 19 and 2020, and then the pandemic came along. So you can see that the numbers has been really affected. But what is positive now over the past few years, even though we saw a slight decline last year in Denmark here, but what's positive in general is that it's quite stable now. So we had 60 back in 2021 and now we have 58%. So sustainability is becoming part of the new normal for consumers. It is there, even though we see a very worrying world around us. We have tougher economy, high cost of living, we have war and conflicts, a lot of focus on that. So in many ways we do see that people are worried. We'll get back to that as well. But still, sustainability is there and it's not moving. So it holds its ground and sustainability is resilient, and that is super positive for us who has worked with this topic for so long. Looking a bit more at what the Danish consumers talk about this year, we can see that there are some familiar things here. War and conflicts, I just mentioned it. Of course, that is number one. That goes for all the countries that we're looking at. So that is, of course, a very, very hot topic, if I may say so. That's gone up, as you can see here to the right as well, the little green arrow. Climate change, number two, very high on the agenda, 48% talking about climate change, also gone up since last year. Public health, of course, health, always interesting, very much connected to the ego, you yourself, your family, so that is, of course, very interesting. The country's economy, it's gone down slightly, it's not that much, but it's gone down a bit, but still on the top 5, as you can see, of course, people are again worried about the economy, the financials, both from a country perspective and a personal perspective. And then also bit lower than last year, but still on the top 5, energy. So efficient energy use and efficient energy, sustainable energy. So those are the top 5s. Moving from the top 5s to the 5 areas that have moved the most, so increased the most, the topics that people talk much more about this year than last year. And this is super interesting. We do see, as for many of the other Nordic countries, that circular economy is coming out on top. So 33% compared to last year's 27% talking about circular economy. And that's, of course, very interesting because this is one of the keys to a sustainable development in the future. Another thing, I talked a bit about worrying, people being worried. Yes, opinion polarization has gone up from a lower level to a slightly higher level. People are definitely thinking and talking about, the fact that we are seeing a polarization in politics and in different parts of society. So this is definitely something that is on the agenda for people more and more. War and conflicts increasing since last year. Nothing strange about that. Diversity and inclusion, interesting to see, that's gone up from 25 to 30. And climate, that was also number 2 in the top 5, but also gone up from 44 to 48. So positive developments, and we do see also a mix here of course, both environmentally related, climate related issues, but also society and socially related issues in this mix. Moving from what people talk about, because that's one thing, to what they actually think companies should work with the most. What is most important for companies to work with when we ask Danish consumers? And we track this bunch of areas over time. We've done it for 5 years now. And starting at the very top, of course, also gone up 2 percentage points since last year, is recycling and recycling of materials. So that aspect of circular economy is super important if you ask Danish consumers. This is something that companies definitely need to prioritize. Climate, not only gone up in what people talk about, but also in priority. You can see that it's gone up 3 percentage points, climate change, so that's number 2 on the Danish agenda, so to speak. We have local labor conditions. Now we're more into the social aspects as number 3, really, really important. And you can also see number 5, local production. So we do see a movement, so to speak, when it comes to some of the social, but also in some sense the local aspects. But also interesting to see from the social responsibility aspect that labor conditions abroad, meaning in production countries, has gone up a lot, 4 percentage points relative to the other areas. And also something that usually deviates for Denmark, that's the same this year, sustainable packaging being kind of a narrow issue, but that is number 4, super important for Danish consumers. And this is slightly different from what we see, for example, in Sweden and Finland, but definitely interesting to note. Another KPI that we have been following from the very beginning in Sustainable Brand Index is this one, the willingness to pay, or rather how large a share of the population that feel that sustainability affects their purchasing decisions when they buy something. And this is, of course, not a perfect version of the truth, because we do know that what people say and what they do are 2 vastly different things. So claiming that sustainability is important is one thing, but it does give us an indication of how perhaps they view themselves and the value around sustainability. And just as for some of the other things that we looked at, and especially the interest in sustainability, we did see from 2013 up until 2022 a fairly positive development. Yes, there were some deviations for some years, but the overall trend the long-term trend was positive. But now we do see, first time last year, but also this year, 2023 and 2024, that this is actually going down. So going from 73% to 68% last year and 64% this time. And this is interesting and a bit worrying. Not too much worrying, don't worry, because what we see here, and the reason for this when we dive a bit deeper here, is that people are confused. They have a hard time understanding. That's the key driver here. Hard time understanding what is sustainable, what is not sustainable, what am I supposed to choose? And since they're very confused, because sustainability is complex, we all know that, and consumers are definitely realizing that, then it's also harder for them to, really try and do this. And of course, there are other aspects that comes into play as well, economy, personal finances, etc. So sustainability has to be clear, distinctive, but also very much connected to the everyday life of people and making it easily accessible for them. It's going down, but there are very clear reasons for it, and that's something that you as brands have to address clearly. Let's take a step into the consumer world. We've been there, but let's dive even deeper. And first of all, I want to walk you through some things that we've added this year. We've added a lot of lifestyle questions, so to speak, and these are just some of them. But I think these are interesting because they really show a challenging picture, I would say, when it comes to sustainability. And I just talked about the complexity of sustainability and the fact that consumers are confused. And this maybe adds a bit on top of that, because first of all, if you start from the bottom here, you can see that the awareness is quite low today. We see that only 18% of the Danish population understand, I may say, that their current lifestyle is not sustainable. So we have 82% of the population, to of course a varying extent, a varying degree, but 82% saying that, well, my lifestyle is fairly sustainable. And that is, by all means, if we look at the numbers and how we're doing in terms of, for example, emissions, we do know that that's probably not the case, especially not in the Nordic countries. So the self-realization, the self-awareness is quite low, and that is definitely something that is challenging, but also something for brands to address and really, help consumers understand that there is a need for change in the lifestyle. Because as you can see, if we look further in this graph, we do see that people want to live more sustainably. We do have 55% of the population saying that, yes, I do want to live more sustainably. Of course, we also see that 44% say that, if I am to make sustainable changes, that has to fit with my current lifestyle. But again, there is an ambition, there is a will to change, there is a will to do better, but still the starting point, the lifestyle as it is right now, there we need to do some work because people are not self-aware enough, basically. Let's have a look at our 4 behavior groups. These are 4 groups that we have been following since 2013. They are very interesting because they track what people do rather than what they say that they do. And this is a super important distinction within sustainability. Ego, as you might guess, is really focused on themselves, so to speak. So ego is not a key person driving the sustainable development. They are, however, very, very interested in what I would call national values, local production, domestic work opportunities, etc., etc. So there are definitely some aspects of it, but they can't really stand sustainability and climate as words. They're quite sensitive to it. Moderate. This is, as you might guess from the name, kind of the average consumer. They are maybe not too sustainable, but they are definitely interested in being sustainable and making sustainable choices. But they are not the kind of group that will drive that forward with themselves. They look at others, and once other people start acting sustainably or doing sustainable things, then they might actually follow. The smart behavior group. This is what many of you out there would characterize as the conscious consumer today. This is really a group that values sustainability, but also quality, service, health. And I think the key characteristic that I want to mention here is really that this is a group that can balance what's in it for them, what's good for me, but also what's in it for the world and for society and for climate, etc. So they are having kind of a sense of balancing these 2 important things. The dedicated sustainable behavior group. This is really the person that prioritizes sustainability number 1, no matter what. Sustainability always comes first. They're knowledgeable, super interested, and also quite active around what companies do and voice their opinions quite loudly. When we look at the development of these 4 behavior groups for Denmark, this is what we see. First of all, that the average consumer, moderate, going up from 39% to 45%, so a big group, always been, but very big this year. Then we see the emergence of a polarization that we actually started seeing last year. You can see that ego is moving up, so going from 28% last year to 31%, slight increase there. But also at the same time, we see that the smart group is moving in the other direction, so going from 21 to 18%. And of course, at the bottom here, you can see that the dedicated group, the kind of die-hard sustainability enthusiasts, if I may call them so, going from 12 to 5%. So this is actually a huge decrease that we see. So if you add this together, we can see that ego is dragging in one direction, 31%, and then you have the smart and dedicated, the more sustainability-oriented groups, 18 plus 5% equals 23%. So this is definitely a situation that we have to address. And of course, having the dedicated moving from 12 to 5% is definitely a sign of the fact that people are confused, maybe a bit of despair in there as well. How much can they affect? What possibility do they have to affect, especially in a tougher economy? Because since we're looking at behaviors here, that is definitely something that is affecting the fact that people don't always have the means to be the dedicated consumer or be the smart consumer. So here, brands have to step in and be a part of the solution, because we know that the willingness is there, the ambitions are there. We just have to help them make the right decisions and provide those abilities for them. And the key thing in providing the right abilities for people to behave sustainably is, of course, communication, sustainability communication. This is where we can really drive change. So let's have a look at that. First of all, what we see some of the indicators here are very interesting this year, I would say. We see, first of all, that the interest in sustainability communication, so basically consumers, Danish consumers saying, yes, I like what I'm seeing. I think sustainability communication is something good, something I want to see more of. That is actually going from 42%, down a bit from the year before that, 2022, to 57% this year. So it's really I would say it almost skyrockets, to be honest, because at the same time you can see that the negatives going from 1/4 of the population, 25%, to only 14%. So here we have a significant move from people being actually quite, maybe not negative, but at least less positive, and to some extent negative, but to actually being, it looks good, it looks positive. The media spend and the amount of communication in sustainability has gone down a bit in the market. That goes for Denmark in this case, but also for the Nordics as well, because we do know that the economy has been tougher for companies. Therefore, media spend has gone down. So we have seen, or consumers rather, have seen a bit less communication, which means that they have had the ability to maybe reset a bit, and now they are positive to the actual existence of it. They do think, in many ways at least, that this is something that can be a positive thing, a positive force for change. Just had to be the right kind of communication. So good things happening here. On the other hand, when we look at the trust, there we still have this big challenge. Of course, we've had a lot of talk about greenwashing, not the least in Denmark. We've had a lot of situations where brands maybe have said a bit too much, or maybe been a bit too bold, so to speak, and that has been blown up in many ways, and therefore we see that the trust in communication, sustainability communication, is still challenging, going from 32% of the population saying that yes, I trust in general what brands are saying in sustainability, to only 23% this year, so much lower. And at the same time, simultaneously, we see that the share of negatives going from 1/4 of the population, 25%, to 32% of the population. So again, we do have a challenge. People are positive, yes, they like sustainability communication, but they maybe don't trust the communication that they see at the moment. So this is something that we have to address, which we will do in just a short while. And also interesting to reflect upon is, of course, the fact that the more you see, the more you hear sustainability communication, the less you tend to trust it. So you get a bit worn out, so to speak. So if you look at the people that feel that I do see sustainability communication of some sort every day, there you have 53% of them saying that I don't trust it. And the other ones who say often, maybe a few times a week, there is 40%. So this goes, of course, this is kind of natural, because the more you see it, the more you can have some kind of opinion about it, obviously, but it's still interesting, and it's an interesting indication, because it's so clearly visible that the more you see it, the less you trust it. And this is again a challenge, and it talks a lot about not maybe that people don't like sustainability communication, because again, we saw that the attitude is moving in the right direction. People are more positive, they want to see it, but how it's done and how your brands are doing it currently. And let's discuss that, because we have also looked a bit at, okay, what would then entail, what would be the key building bricks in credible sustainability communication. And there we have seen 3 very clear things that consumers have pointed out for us when we have done the data collection this year. So first of all, transparency. And what does this mean? This is an old word. We've been talking about it a lot over the past decade at least. Being transparent, everyone has to be transparent. But basically, when we talk with consumers here and dive a bit deeper into the data, we see that what they mean is really that they wanted communication to be transparent in the way that you're not only talking about all the things you're doing well, but also the things that you're doing less well, and actually maybe poorly in some cases. This is where we failed. This is what we didn't do good enough. That's what you should talk about as well. Not only because people don't feel that it's realistic, that everything is great, you're doing fantastic work, because at the same time they can see the numbers in terms of emissions or other things that are going in the wrong direction. So it's not credible for them that everything is just dandy. Doesn't make sense, basically. So you have to be transparent, the good things and the bad things. Second, clarity, or maybe distinctiveness is an even better word, being very clear with this is what it means that we do these things. So if, for example, you're doing a certain sustainability project, or if you're doing a certain effort within sustainability, people want it to be very clear what it means and why this is good, not just that you're doing it. So being clear and distinctive around this is the effect of our work. That is a key thing as well that people point out. And number 3, last but not least, evidence. People want proof that what you're doing is actually true. So they want you to be able to provide that proof, and they want you to be able to say, well, maybe there's a third party here involved, or maybe there is a certification, or maybe there's a label, or maybe there's something that we have gotten as a proof for doing this job in a good enough way, or in the right way, so to speak. So transparency, clarity, distinctiveness, and evidence. These are the 3 key drivers for credible sustainability communication when it comes to the consumer's view of sustainability communication. We're getting into the exciting stuff. The most sustainable brands according to consumers. So, basically Sustainable Brand Index, the ranking in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Let's go. The Sustainable Brand Index ranking score consists of 2 major areas. We call them environmental responsibility and social responsibility. So these are the key aspects of the ranking score. The definition that we use are the 17 global goals for sustainable development. So for environmental responsibility, we take the environmentally related goals, and that's what we use as a definition when we ask consumers. And same for social responsibility, we take the socially related goals and put them in the definition as for social responsibility. And let's take an example. If you're a perfect brand, which means that everyone thinks you're sustainable, you would get 100% within environmental responsibility and another 100% within social responsibility. We take these percentages and we put those on top of each other. So again, a perfect brand, there is no such thing, I know, but a perfect brand would get 200%. That's the maximum score. So the score goes from 0 to 200. And this score then corresponds to a certain rank in the list that you get. First of all, what we're looking at here is the average ranking score for the Danish market. So all the brands in the study. You can see here at the bottom, you can see that environmental and social ranking, those are the ones making up the ranking, as we told you earlier. They're really tight, yeah? So basically what we have here is a clear spillover effect. Even though people may have a clearer opinion sometimes about, generally in the Nordics, in Denmark as well, is really about environmental responsibility. People tend to have clearer opinions about that, but that also spills over. So if you're assuming, or if you think that, I think this brand is doing well within environmental responsibility, you tend to assume that they're actually doing quite well within social responsibility as well. The overall ranking score, the darker bar here, you can see, it had a very nice trend over time. From 2013, there were some deviations earlier years, but then up until 2023, we had a very, very positive development. More and more consumers became positive about the work that brands were doing within sustainability. And now this year, a 20 percentage point drop in the ranking from 55% to 35%. What is going on here? But really what we're seeing here is people are confused about sustainability. We talked about this before. What is sustainability? What isn't sustainability? What brands are doing well? What brands should I like, so to speak? What brands are sustainable, what aren't? But of course, we also see that the amount of communication from brands when it comes to sustainability is much lower. And that is worn off now. So the effect of perhaps communication that you were making in 2021, 2022 has really worn off now. So people have less and less sentiments around that, and that's why we see this steep decrease. And let's dive a bit deeper into it from the overall ranking, because the ranking in itself is made up by 2 brand parameters, as I call them. First of all, we have awareness. So basically, how much do people actually feel that they know about the work you're doing in sustainability? It can be knowledge, people actually knowing what you're doing. That is quite rare. And they can also be gut feeling. So basically they have some kind of a sentiment and opinion based in the gut around the work that you're doing. And what we're looking at here is the average awareness level for all the Danish, the brands in the Danish market. And again, here we have seen up until 2023 a quite positive trend, going from 50% roughly in 2013 and topping out at 67% last year, 2023, but now we're down to 60, so we're not at the bottom, definitely not, but we do see that what we're seeing here is that people feel that they are aware to a less extent about what brands are doing. And this again is connected to the fact that they're subject to less communication. And of course, there are other things happening in the world. People are a bit scattered at the moment as well. Not only awareness is going down, but also the attitude, so what people actually think. And what we're looking at here is the share of positives, so people that are saying that, yes, I am positive. I think brands are doing well within sustainability. So this is the average, again, for all the brands in the ranking in Denmark. Once again, we see this fantastic trend from 2013, 15% only, very, very low level, to be honest. We did see that Danish consumers were quite skeptical back then, and then it went up and topped at 41% last year of the population with a positive view of brands' sustainability work. And now huge drop here as well from 41 to 29%. So we do see, if you compare awareness that we just looked at before here to attitude, we do see that the big decrease here is definitely within attitude. And it's not the fact that people are more negative, it's rather that people feel that they have gone from having a clear positive attitude to brands to actually feeling that, they're a bit unsure, sustainability is complex, they have a tough time understanding, and again, less subject to communication, so there the attitude goes away as well. Now, we're moving from overall insights about the ranking to actual industries and brands and the way it looks. So now we're getting close to the hottest topic of the day, so to speak. So first of all, let's have a look at the top 10 performing industries in Sustainable Brand Index 2024 for Denmark. These are the 10, and I can just go through them from the bottom. We have number 10, the 10th most sustainable industry according to Danish consumers, insurance and pension. It's quite well, given the fact that insurance and pension is generally, or those are industries that are tough to engage people, not something that people go around and think about every day. We have hotels, number 9. We have home appliances and electronics, the brands within that category, number 8. Furniture and decoration stores at number 7. Electricity and heating, an industry that talks a lot about sustainability, as we all know. E-commerce in general, number 5. Passenger transport, all right, number 4. And then if we look at the top 3 here, food, number 3. Food, highly engaging, high frequency, people eat every day and drink every day. So that comes high. We have beauty, also highly engaging because it's usually about what you put on yourself, on your body. So that is, of course, engaging for consumers as well. And then number 1, grocery stores. In general, Danes are most positively attuned within sustainability to grocery stores. But well done for all these industries, definitely. Taking a step from the industries into the brands, and now what we're looking at here are the 10 brands that climb the most in the ranking. So basically moving the most positions in the ranking from 2023 to 2024. So let's go through them from the bottom up. So first we have Ford, car brand Ford, up 55 ranking positions since 2023. Well done. We have Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream brand, activism brand, you have to say. 55 spots as well, up from last year. Then we have some finance, Nordea, up 57 spots since last year. Joe and the Juice, up 60 spots. Circle K, the fuel brand, the gas stations, etc. Of course, I have to say, up 61 spots. Then we have SAS, classic brand, airline, Scandinavian Airlines, 82 spots. Top Denmark, and they're going up. Now we're in finance again, 87 spots. And Nykredit, 90 spots. So we can see here a lot of interesting trends here around finance, because we also have second highest climber, Spar Nord, plus 99 spots. So as you can see here, from what I can see, 4 finance brands in the top 10 climbing brands. And then the brand climbing the most this year, very interesting to see, DHL, the logistics company. Some brands climb, others drop. Let's have a quick look at them as well. I'm just going to go through them quite quickly here for you. We have Ilva dropping 77 spots. Then we have F24, Vila, Masai, Norwegian, Elsalg.dk. sorry about the Danish, Go On, Procter & Gamble, by Malene Birger, and Johnson & Johnson. And here we also have a trend is very strong, but let's say we see a pattern here of fashion. We do see some fashion brands here that are definitely slightly overrepresented in the brands dropping the most in Denmark in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. As you might guess, we are getting closer to the revealing the winner, the number 1 in Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Norway, and also, of course, the top 10. Before I do that, I really want to share some key insights into what are the main drivers for the brands that are doing well, because we do see that there are definitely some trends and some similarities, so to speak, when it comes to the brands, either on the top of the list, but also having a very positive development. So first of all, what we see this year, that it's going very well for brands that are, if I may say so, robust and safe. So kind of traditional brands, maybe state-owned, those kind of things, brands that have been around for a long time and people really feel that they know where they have them. Again, they're very robust and they're also providing some kind of safety and security in society. So that is definitely one of the key success factors, being that kind of brand. Another thing, and I mentioned this previously when I talked about success factors for sustainability communication, but that is really being clear and being distinctive. So the brands that are distinctive and actually quite simple, there is a specific sustainability issue that they address, not a variety, but actually, people have an easier time understanding that this is sustainable because, and then it's very clear, what it is. It might be that you address a certain sustainability topic, maybe food waste or maybe organic food, or it might be, this is hygiene, this is, less chemicals. So really clear things that people easily can relate to. And this is, of course, connected to the fact that people are confused and they think that sustainability is tough, it's complex, and then they go to these kind of safeguards, so to speak, the brands that are distinctive and simple. And last but not least, and also a bit connected to the earlier ones, really what we see, brands that are doing well are the brands that have clear passive drivers. And what I mean by this is really, maybe you're not driven primarily by the fact that you're talking about sustainability or that you have clear sustainable values, but also the fact that you have passive drivers that worked for you. Perhaps you belong to a positive industry, perhaps you have a certain ownership. We know, for example, cooperatives, state-owned brands, as I mentioned before, are usually viewed as more sustainable. Maybe you have a long history. Those kind of things are not necessarily always connected to sustainability, but things that people are viewing as sustainable. So if you have these kind of clear passive drivers, then you're in luck this year, because that is clearly driving the way people look at brands from a sustainability perspective. With no further ado, as they say, let's have a look at the ranking for Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Denmark. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to count down for the top 10, and of course ending with number 1. So let's do it. Let's see the brands that Danish consumers view and perceive as the most sustainable in Denmark 2024. All right, let's start. Number 10, we have Coop. This is, of course, a very strong brand in many ways. We also have the cooperative aspect, the passive driver that I just mentioned a bit, doing very well. Coop has been winning Sustainable Brand Index for a number of years, some years ago, as some of you may remember. Number 9, Urkam, doing really well. And this, of course, connecting a bit to what I mentioned before about having a distinct sustainability advantage, in this case, organic, of course. Number 8, Friland. Here we're talking about some also local and, these kind of passive drivers that are super important, but of course, very well done. Number 7, Lego, always doing well in Sustainable Brand Index, and this year is no exception. Dropping a bit, I think, but still doing very well, still on the top 10. And of course, playfulness, education in a really, really strong package. Number 6, Årstiderna, and here we see a trend here. We talked about Urkram, we talked about these kind of distinctive values, and we know that Årstiderna do have a clear value proposition when it comes to sustainability. Number 5, we have Naturmjölk, all right. Naturmjölk, we have number 5, the dairy. We talk about cooperatives, we talk about food, we're really close to people, high engagement, really well done. Number 4, here we have a newcomer, we have Ögo, the organic brand from Netto, well done. And now, the top 3, let's see who is number 3 in Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Denmark. We have Rema 1000, always doing well since the past few years, really a top challenger for the win in Sustainable Brand Index every year. Now they're coming in at number 3. Number 2, Sustainable Brand Index 2024 Denmark, Tise Mejeri, same as Rema 1000, always doing very well, always a big contender to the top spot in Sustainable Brand Index. So here you have it, number 10 to 2, which leaves us with the overall winner in Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Denmark. Let's do it properly. The most sustainable brand, according to Danish consumers, 2024 is Englamark. For the second year in a row, Englamark, of course a part of Coop. As you all know, Englamark coming in as number 1, the most sustainable brand in Denmark according to consumers. Again, very well done, and a huge congratulations to the team behind Englamark and the team at Coop as well.
For andet år i træk er Englamark blevet kåret til Danmarks mest bæredygtige brand. Det er vi utroligt taknemmelige over, fordi det er jer kunder, som har stemt. Englamark er en serie af hverdagsprodukter, enten økologisk eller miljømærket, som fås i alle Coop's butikker. Den dækker det meste af det, du har brug for i hverdagen. Fra bananer til bleer, eller fra solcreme til saftevand. Så kære kunder, tak fordi I har kåret Englamark som Danmarks mest bæredygtige brand. Jeg danser lidt, fordi vi lige har vundet. Det var rigtig varmt.
From the overall winner to the industry winners, of course, we have to look at the brands that are perceived to be the most sustainable in each industry. I'm not going to walk you through all of them. You can see them here, all of them. But there are, of course, some brands that are highlighted a bit because there we have the new winners. So we have, in some industries, we have new winners. We have, for example, Salling Group in consumer goods corporations. There's a new brand, there's a new corporate brand added to the list this year, and they're coming in on top in their category, in their industry. We have McDonald's in restaurants, cafes, and takeaways. They were down last year from the leadership, but now they're actually back on top in that industry, so congratulations on that. We have Hummel in clothes and fashion brands, reclaiming. They were the leading brand a few years back, as I recall it, but now they're reclaiming number 1 in that industry. We have Siemens in home appliances and electronics brand taking the lead from Miele last year. We have Elgiganten as well in home appliances and electronics stores. That's another category, so Elgiganten takes the lead there. In airlines, SAS is snatching the top position from Norwegian last year. So congratulations on that. So we have some new industry winners and we have plenty old ones as well, keeping their leads as perceived as the most sustainable brands in their respective industry. But congratulations to all of you. Well done. Sustainable Brand Index is more than a ranking, so much more. We have the largest database in Europe of sustainability insights. We have 3 different types of reports. We have what we call a data report, we have an analysis report, and we have a strategy report. All of these are made to give you insights into how you're perceived, the reasons behind that, consumer behavior and how to change that, and of course recommendations on how to go on and how to build a sustainable brand and communicate sustainability in the best and most credible and effective way possible. This year, I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that we have actually launched our new project where we combine sustainability perception, Sustainable Brand Index, with sustainability performance and compare those two to identify the gap between what people think and how well you're actually doing within sustainability. So let's have a listen to one of the clients that we worked with on this project. You were actually the first company to jump on this possibility to try the perception versus performance analysis. How come you took this decision?
Well, we like to be early adopters, of course, but first and foremost, we don't like to speculate. So we wanted to really grasp the current state of the company when it comes to performance and perception. And as we really like the Sustainable Brand Index, and it's given us a lot of insights, we thought this might actually be the thing for us to know our current state.
Do you have any learnings from this process? Hopefully you have. Something that you learned along the way from the analysis?
Well, we've learned a lot of things. We've been using this, the material, the analysis, broadly in the organization, both myself and the sustainability manager and also the management team. So it was actually the foundation for starting the work with our new sustainability strategy. So it's given us good insights, things that we thought we knew, but now we have them validated, and also a lot of new insights that we did not know for a fact. So it's been very good for us, helpful.
Great. And maybe you have some kind of an insight or something you learned along the way that you could share with us?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we talk a lot about EV or the electrification of vehicles, and we know we're doing good. We're moving in a fast pace, but to see that our performance and the perception from consumers that we are in the pole position, that was great to see. I mean, that was a good receipt on what we're doing is actually gaining knowledge. And also, we found out that we need to actually pick up our pace in certain areas, that we're not transparent enough because people don't know what we're doing. So that was also a good learning.
Here are some examples of what our clients say, the clients that actually choose to take part of their reports. This can help you define your sustainability communication, of course also spot areas where you need to improve. A lot of our clients I know use this material for their annual business strategy, to prioritize, to make the right decisions, to choose the right path, and what to focus on, and of course, again, to plan for communications over the coming years. So if you're interested in this, reach out and we will tell you much more about what we have for you in our vast database of sustainability insights. Let's wrap up this launch webinar for Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in Denmark. First of all, really happy to see that sustainability is resilient, as I mentioned in the beginning, meaning that even though we have a lot of worry around us, there are a lot of things going on in the world. We have an economy and personal finances that are challenging. We still see that sustainability interest is keeping its top position, so to speak. So it is resilient, it is standing its ground, and that means that it's part of the new normal for consumers, which we're of course very happy about, and that's where we need it to be. Also interesting to see that on the Danish agenda, on the agenda of Danish consumers, we do see that circular economy, circularity, and also climate are both high on the agenda. So these are top priorities and also increasing in the eyes of consumers. Good to take notes on and act upon. Talking about consumers, we do know and we have seen during this webinar as well that ambitions are high. People want to be sustainable. They are open to actually becoming more sustainable and changing, so to speak. But also at the same time, it has to be within the framework of their lifestyle. And also many of them, actually the vast majority, 82% as you may recall, actually feel that their current lifestyle is more or less fairly sustainable, which is honestly not the case. So there we have some work to do around the self-awareness. We do see a lot of confusion on the market in the consumers' minds. They have a hard time understanding what is sustainable, what is not sustainable, what brands to trust and not to trust in this field. And of course, on top of that, we have seen less communication from companies, lower media spend, which means that the perception is dropping. Less consumers are aware, less consumers are actively positive around what brands are doing within sustainability. So we have to get out there, we have to reach out, better and more communication definitely is needed. And last but not least, the complexity and this confusion that I just talked about, the complexity that is sustainability drives a need for at least clarity and maybe even simplicity for consumers. They want to understand, it has to be clear for them what is sustainable, what is not sustainable, what is the immediate advantage of me actually choosing this particular product or service, for example, from the sustainability perspective. Because as it is right now, it's very complex, and complexity leads to indifference in the worst case. So we have to address that. Time flies when you're having fun. The official report from Sustainable Brand Index 2024 is out. You choose Sustainable Brand Index in the menu and your country, and you download the official report to see how your brand performed this year. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or want to talk to us, don't hesitate to reach out.